Hi, hope everyone is well. If you're returning, welcome back. And if you are new, a very warm welcome. You YouTube pros know the drill. Please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Thank you. Later, I'll do another video with my top 10 classical original test records. This time, it's classical reissues. I use reissues before originals because of their quality, new vinyl, tape pitch stability, and other reasons. As a conductor with my audiophile and music predilections, these may not be what you're after. If you have a specific classical test record or more, I'd love to read about them in the comments below. So, my audiophile needs. First, the ensemble. I have conducted orchestras, large and small, and larger chamber groups. Those ensembles are my bailiwick. If the orchestra sounds good and meets my needs, an instrumental or vocal soloist sounding equally good is just gravy. Positioning. I don't want to hear the players from the podium perspective. A little distance covers a lot. You'd be surprised, or maybe not. Therefore, a good stall perspective, dead center, about 10 to 15 rows back, is ideal. So what am I listening for? Timbral accuracy, instrument placement, imaging, and natural soundstage, including layering and spatial cues. As for timbre, the solo players on many of these records are famous for their very specific tone and phrasing. I want to hear that. On the slide, popping in from the left, I have those needs listed. No matter the recording, whether large-scale orchestral or chamber, I'm listening for all those cues. Some are more pronounced than others, but they are all there just the same. If a recording does something special, I'll mention it. As for recorded spaces, in England, Watford sounds different than Walthamstow, and both are a lot different than Kingsway. Same in the US, a big difference between Chicago Orchestra Hall and Boston Symphony Hall. I like to hear those differences, if any are on the tape. Here's what they look like, all with different heights, construction materials, flooring, and dimensions. I'm assuming an accurate recording can accommodate all those differences. Also, the original engineering, producer, lacquer, cutter, followed by the reissue recutting team, all are very important. It just happens that all the examples I'm giving today are remasters and recuts from the original analog master tape. I have a few super sounding records with a DSD step, including a few on our Audiophilia dream list. I'll link the list below. But yes, where testing is concerned, I guess I'm an all analog snob. So, to the good stuff. I guess they are in no particular order, but the final three are humdingers. So let's begin with Mendelssohn's A Midsummer Night's Dream. This is the ORG version, Bernie Grundman cut. I think it's 2011. I purchased this sealed, I got it the other day. It's been on the shelf, I guess, for about 12 years, and it was a little bit dished, unfortunately. But the recording is magnificent. And before I was using the Decca reissue from Speaker's Corner, which is also very, very good. Not quite as good as this, but very good. So this actually accentuates some of the things I've been listening for when I'm listening for testing speakers and testing the room, testing other components. And the first thing is the first four chords, written by Mendelssohn when he was 17. The whole overture is amazing. The four chords are very difficult to play in tune. So I'm first of all looking for the performance, and the London Symphony here under Peter Mark play them perfectly in tune, which is annoying because it's very rare. And I played this a couple of times and it was very challenging, and the conductor wasn't too happy some of the times we were playing it. And as you can see on the score, the flute that I was playing, the first flute part, is stuck on a high G sharp. It's the key of E major. It's not easy to get in tune. Anyway, so that's what I'm looking for. The balance of the woodwinds and the French horn. Also, later on in the scherzo, I'm looking for microdynamics and little accents in the string section. And I heard it quite a bit on the Speaker's Corner version, but a lot more on this version. This is, if you're going to get that piece and you don't know it yet, you don't know which one you're going to get, I would definitely go with this ORG if you can still get it. They're only 2,500 printed, but I'm sure there's still some around on Discogs, but they're not cheap, but they're worth every penny. So anyway, I'm looking for the violin dynamics, little accents and crescendos with the violin section, violas and cellos as they're racing up and down the scherzo in scales in 3/8 time, and it's magnificent. And the first time I heard this version, I was quite shocked at the very quick dynamics. So I'm looking for that. And how fast does a component react? What about the cartridge, the turntable, and the speakers? I should mention that I think I've put it in a slide above, that what I use as my reference system for all this stuff, so you can get a chance to kind of see where I'm at. Anyway, this is a Kingsway recording from the late 50s originally, and it's absolutely superb. I'm just going to throw a little bit of music up there where you'll see the basses and the cellos do pizzicato and a pickup into the 3/8 bar, and the bass lands on a low G, which is 49 hertz. And in this Kingsway acoustic, it's so beautiful on the right-hand side of the channel of the stereo, and in the back of the hall, and the players are so good, and it just resonates beautifully, each of the notes. But I'm listening for that low G. Does it resonate? Do the speakers represent the note properly? Is the integrated amplifier fast enough to be able to get that sound? And it's magnificent. So that's one section to look out for, specifically to do with the bass. And so if you have it, you can get on the original Decca or an original London Blueback, or the this one, which is incredible, the ORG, or even if you have it on the Decca reissue on Speaker's Corner, which usually goes for about $50 on Discogs. You're in with a winner there. These next two incredible RCA Shaded Dogs, Living Stereo, reissues from Analog Productions. Basically, this is for bass. They're both amazing performances of amazing pieces. Shostakovich Symphony No. 1, written when he was 17 as a graduation piece from the St. Petersburg Conservatory. Can you imagine that? His instrumental language is so beautifully formed already at the age of 17. And this is with the LSO in Kingsway with Jean Martinon, conductor. And then the one on the right, of course, everybody knows that. Fritz Reiner, Chicago Symphony, Mussorgsky, Ravel arrangement of pictures at an exhibition. Done in Chicago Symphony Hall. I'm not sure what year it is, late 50s, early 60s. Both incredible recordings, incredible playing. And you can listen to this either recording and get everything you need to kind of tune in your system and test your system and just enjoy the music as wonderful performances. But specifically, I'm listening for the beginning of the Shostakovich Symphony, about 32 bars in. The basses are doing a little bit of a solo, and all of a sudden you hear that rumble, and most of you know what that is. That's the Kingsway rumble. The tube, the London subway, the tube between Holborn and what's the other one? Aldwych. That's it. Holborn and Aldwych on the Piccadilly line, rumbling underneath Kingsway. And of course, they didn't know what they were hearing. They didn't really hear it on their speakers. But of course, the microphones picked it up, and we get to hear it when it's all being remastered. So listen out for the Kingsway rumble all the way through the first movement of that symphony, No. 1. It's really quite wonderful. And on the right, what I'm looking for at the beginning of Nomus, the famous Nomus that's been recorded many, many times, even as a single movement. The Power of the Orchestra, I think, has it as well. And also Witch's Brew has it as well. And that's the painting of the gnome, and it's kind of ugly, and Mussorgsky and Ravel do a brilliant job of conjuring up what it's like. But I'm looking for the bass drum and cymbals. Are they positioned correctly in the back left of Chicago Symphony Hall? And more importantly, and not always does the equipment get this, but if you have really great pickup equipment and great speakers, and the rest of your chain is really doing well, you can actually hear them separated ever so slightly, imaged. So I can't remember now, just off oral memory, bass drum on the left, cymbals on the right, but they're right next to each other. They're standing next to each other, but they're separated by a foot or two, and you can actually hear that. So that's something to look forward to on that track. Nomus, it's about a minute in. I will tell you that both those pieces, not only they're great musically, but you're going to get a lot out of it. I mean, in timbral accuracy, each of the solos I was mentioning before, the solo, Ray Still on oboe in the Chicago Symphony. I think the trumpet player at that time in the London Symphony was Clift. I think his name was Clift, Mr. Clift. I'm not sure of his first name. Dennis Clift. But he had an incredible staccato and a beautiful tone on the staccato. Listen to the beginning of the symphony. You'll hear this little trumpet little sound. And again, I'm not going to sing it, but it's so clear and it's so beautifully imaged in the soundstage in Kingsway. And just listen for little things like that. You'll get your own cues. You know, most of you have listened to these recordings anyway and you have your own cues. And I'd love to hear them. Put them in the comments below. So next up, why these two particular recordings? They wouldn't seem to have anything in common. The first on the left is the new Deutsche Grammophon, the original source, recut by the Emil Berliner Studios. It's absolutely wonderful. Immediately made our Audiophilia dream list for all the great reasons that we love about dynamic, beautifully recorded records. I had the original, was okay. What they did with the new one is quite remarkable. Highly recommended. And on the right, a 1959 Decca Speaker's Corner reissue of a Schubert, famous Schubert chamber piece. What would they have in common? Well, these two records I use for microdynamics. And by microdynamics, I mean dynamics that are very, very quiet, but retain the accurate timbre of the instruments. A lot of equipment can manage, and a lot of recordings can manage quiet dynamics, but to get the actual timbre of the instruments is very, very difficult. And both of these do it superbly. If you're looking for something for microdynamics, go to the Debussy Trois Nocturnes. Absolutely fantastic piece. 3 pieces actually. Nuages, Clouds, and Fête, Festivals, and then Sirène, the Sirens. Famous story of the Sirens, Jason and the Argonauts. And at the end of Debussy pieces, a lot of them, La Mer as well, in the codas, when he's bringing down the temperature quite a bit, he gets down to very, very quiet sounds with different types of string techniques, with muted strings, and especially with percussion and kind of gamelan percussion, which Debussy loved, like tuned cymbals and tuned bells. It's just beautiful. But you've got to have a really good system and a really good recording to pick it up. So that's what I used both of these for. In the Debussy, it's a lot to do with a string section playing quietly, and the percussion instruments, and the Trout Quintet is to do specifically with a chamber group and the way they produce their sounds quietly. This is with Sir Clifford Curzon on piano, with members of the Vienna Octet, basically solos of the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra, including Willy Boskovsky. What's amazing about this recording, and this reissue by Speaker's Corner, is an absolute knockout. In fact, the Deutsche Grammophon, the original source, just reissued the recut of, who is it? Oh, Emil Gelals and the what's the quartet's name? I should know. Anyway, I'll put it down below. Anyway, it's a wonderful, wonderful recording, but I'm not sure it would beat this one. Yeah, this is very special because of the string sound and the string tone, especially when they're playing quietly. It also has a bass player. I'm not remembering his name right now. You can see him right there on the photograph. And he has a very kind of unique, whiny, sometimes out of tune sound, dare I say it, but it's always so musical and it's always in the right position and technically, rhythmically perfect. But he's an interesting player, but you can tell his sound. It's so unique on this recording. And the Viennese string tone on the violas, on the cello and the 2 violins is very special. Very beautifully, the phrasing And you get it from this recording, especially when it's playing quietly, and with Sir Clifford Curzon, one of the world's greatest piano players. I think it was 1959, this recording in the Sophiensaal in Vienna, I think. But it gets very, very quiet. I'm going to put a little musical example up of when the piano is playing quite quickly, and the recording is so good. You get the actual hammer sound. You get the touch of the piano and the timbre and the note, but you also get the kind of the hammer reflection as well of the on the soundboard. It's really amazing. So that recording is great for piano and piano tone, but string tone and quietly, some of the dynamics, they bring it way down, yet the sweetness of their sound never ever dissipates. I use these two wonderful recordings, Defay's masterpiece, The Three-Cornered Hat, with Ensemble, the Orchestra de Suisse Romande, with Teresa Berganza, soprano soloist, and the one on the right, that very interesting cover by George Antil, is Australian ballet Corroboree. It's like an indigenous rite of spring. And I used both these recordings for one thing: depth of soundstage. The width is great too, but I've never heard sound stages so deep. The one on the left is in Geneva's Victoria Hall, and the one on the right, I'm not sure. I'll put it down below. I'll put a photograph up. It's one of them, Watford or Walthamstow. It could be Kingsway. They're all three of them wonderful, as you know, and they're both, again, incredible performances. In fact, I would say the Ensemble is the best he's ever got out of the Orchestra de Suisse Romande. The Three-Cornered Hat. This is the Speaker's Corner reissue. It's really amazing. It's been reissued lots. Even Esoteric are coming out with a new print, a new vinyl pressing of their famous remastering. And I'm sure it'll be wonderful. But this $50 Speaker's Corner is amazing. The original, of course, on Decca goes to over 1,000, so you're not going to get that, or maybe you have it if you're very lucky, but it's worth getting. And the Corroboree, this is the I think it's 1992 Bernie Grunman cut on Classics. I got it sealed. I was looking for it for a long time. It must have been sitting on a shelf for a long time sealed, so it was quite dished, unfortunately. But my arm managed it, so that's good. But my God, the recording is so good. And you can see way to the back of the hall, and there's lots of cues, instrumental cues that'll give you that effect. So if you want to just check and see how the soundstage is doing, the width is great too, but the depth is really amazing. When Teresa Berganza starts singing at the beginning of the Three-Cornered Hat, I used to think she was singing in the back of the hall, but the imaging and that gets it just right with my new arm and new setup, and she's just off to the right in the balcony, and it's very, very good. And the Corroboree is a lot of fun. It starts off kind of very murky with contrabassoons and claves. That's always nice to hear when you're testing your system. But then it gets really kind of wacky and wild and fun. And it's a great record. I love the cover. The Three-Cornered Hat cover is very famous too, that Decca. I can highly recommend both of them. They're both great fun listens just to listen to the music. But if you want to just check the depth of your system, these are your two. This is one of the princes of my collection. This is a recording from the early 90s, Professor Keith Johnson reference recordings, an all analog production. The London Philharmonic with Malcolm Arnold, the composer, conducting his overtures. It's an absolutely remarkable record. And I use this for one thing. How does the system handle dynamics? Macrodynamics. And by macro, I mean macro. In some of these pieces, I've never heard volumes so loud on a record without it distorting and skipping. This is, there is Becker's The Dandiprat, an earlier piece by Arnold, a really great piece. I've never connected it, but I have played it a couple of times. But the premiere recordings of other pieces that I've not heard or played, The Smoke, a Sussex Overture, The Fairfield, and Commonwealth Christmas Overture was a bit of fun. What's amazing about this is the volume. I think it's the smoke. There's 2 or 3 crescendos that Malcolm Arnold must have been having fun with the orchestra because it gets so loud. And of course, Keith Johnson's a genius. He just handles it all. But can your system handle it? That's always a bit of fun. The other thing I bought this for is because of the reference recording is so perfect, and I mean perfect. It's so beautiful. I think it's Watford Town Hall. And the London Philharmonic, they probably just got there early in the morning. It's probably raining outside. They get in there, they have a cup of tea, sit down, get their instruments out, warm up quickly. And then the light goes on. And Malcolm Arnold probably just recorded, the first run through, or the second run through, and got it for the tape. Time is money in London. It's very expensive to record there. So it's magical performances. The sound is incredible. One of my favorite recordings. Some of the solos, the piccolo solo and the oboe solo, and they're just absolutely beautiful. And they're perfectly placed in the soundstage. So again, another recording that you can listen to any kind of audiophile tenant you like. It could be, soundstage or imaging. But this one I use specifically for volume, macrodynamics. It's a real system killer. So if you get this, it is available on Discogs, I think. I'm not sure how many copies there are, but it's worth hunting out. Along with the reference recording, these are my two favorite ones. Prokofiev, Lieutenant Kijé, and Stravinsky in Song of the Nightingale, Ryan Chicago Symphony. That's a Living Stereo, Shaded Dog, Analog Productions reissue. That's the one with Ryan K. Smith cut. It's wonderful. And the one on the right, I think it's Bernie Grumman. I'll check and put it up on the screen for you. It's been done quite a few times. It's 45s. This is the basic 33 Mercury I got from Analog Productions. It's magnificent. Both recordings show the orchestras in their perfect light. I don't have any specifics for these two recordings. They do everything so well. The macrodynamics, some parts of the Firebird that are just intense, and also in Lieutenant Kijé, Prokofiev, the opening of the Song of the Nightingale is like a scalded cat. That's a real good test for macrodynamics. But the microdynamics are beautiful too. I'm looking for the whole and the spatial cues of the specific imaging of the instruments. For example, and I'll put the music up on the screen. The beginning of Lieutenant Kijé, the birth of Kijé, the first 2 minutes, I can pretty well tell how a system's going to sound just for those 2 minutes. From the opening trumpet, Adolf Herseth playing the trumpet, and where he's positioned just to the right and the back, and then the snare drum, and then Mr. Kajala, Wally Kajala, the great piccolo player, his piccolo part a little more forward, followed by one of the greatest cues. It's French horns, 3 I think, or maybe 4, playing pianissimo and bass drum pianissimo. But with the recording, if it's played well, you get the weight of the bass drum, even pianissimo. And I'm not sure who the player was, but the 3rd or 4th tap, he or she misses slightly, and you can actually hear it. So listen carefully for those cues. And then, of course, it gets very, very loud. And is it balanced within the soundstage? That's great for the Prokofiev. And the Firebird, I always go to side 2 and play through the whole thing. There's so many magnificent moments when the demon Katche wakes up and all the trumpets are coming from different parts of the hall. He wrote it. Stravinsky wrote it when he was 26 years old. It's just magnificent. And it's they're 2 final records, 2 fitting records to close off this video, because you're not going to get any better as far as orchestral recordings are concerned. And that's what I'm looking for. So I hope you got some valuable information today. I'm sure many of you know these recordings. You're audiophiles, you know what you want. You've been on Discogs at 3 o'clock in the morning while everybody's asleep and thinking, should I buy this record? Go ahead, buy it. I'm telling you, go ahead, buy it. As my wife said to me the other day, after the summer of vinyl, she said to me, sweetheart, I think that's about it, isn't it? And it was. It's about 125 records in about 3 months. So that's it for me. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you got some value out of it. Again, please subscribe and like. We really appreciate it. It helps the channel. And I hope you're all well. And we'll see you in the next video.